He's been in a few. Tom Brady, 7-time Super Bowl champ. Most Super Bowl wins, yards, touchdowns. Your first Super Bowl was here.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Watching that game, for you to watch it, the video, how does it land for you?
It was very special, the whole environment at that time. We were coming off a kind of a remarkable season for our team, because when I first got to the Patriots in 2000, we struggled. We were 5-11, and we started off that season, the 2001 season, 0-2,
Yep.
and Drew had hurt himself. And we thought we had a decent team, nowhere near what we ended up becoming, but that year just taught me a lot about teamwork and foundation and the right fundamentals and the right beliefs. And we had a lot of great coaches on that staff. And when now I look back, we had a lot of great players, too. We just didn't know how great we were at the time.
Right.
Because it was the beginning of something. There was a seed that was kind of planted and incubated that maybe from the outside in, people saw us, a bunch of guys that are okay, kind of a band of brothers put together really uniquely. And certainly we don't believe in this Brady kid. You know, how good can he be? He was, a 4-string quarterback last year. And when I look back on that team now, I see Teddy Bruschi, Mike Vrabel, Richard Seymour, Willie McGinnis, Ty Law, Otis Smith. Offensively, Troy Brown and David Patton played great for us. Matt Light played. We had a lot of great players. It took a little bit of time for that team to really take shape. And it culminated with this AFC Championship game in Pittsburgh, which they were the top seed. They were playing phenomenal all season long. And we win in the Snow Bowl. We go on the road to Pittsburgh. And that was a tough game because they had those freaking terrible towels, and they had 70,000 fans. And we battled it out to end up winning that game really on defense. Our defense played spectacular, as they did basically the entire season. And then in a blink of an eye, we're down here in New Orleans because there was no break from the championship game to the Super Bowl because of 9/11, and they pushed the season. So before you know it, it's Friday night, and I'm like, we're playing in the Super Bowl. And it's so many great memories for so many reasons, but there was a uniqueness to that season that when it's your first, it's phenomenal, but the uniqueness of that year in the beginnings of something that we all transformed our entire life. And I think that's the cool part when I think about that season.
You can see your expression after Super Bowl I. It's, I'm really happy, but what just happened?
Yeah.
And as I watched your Super Bowls, then there was like, how dare you doubt us? You went through stages of post-game expression. So that was, you could see it. It was like, you put your hands on your head. You're like, what just happened?
Yeah.
So then, now you have Jalen Hurts and another Super Bowl in Mahomes. Now let's pivot to your second Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Now there's an expectation of, we're in a second Super Bowl. Is there a gap? Is there a difference? For you, confidence, sense of self, second, third Super Bowls to first. Is there a gap?
Yeah. Can I just think about, as you were saying something, I think about the last Super Bowl I played in, the 10th one, and this came up on my Instagram feed today. And it showed us winning the game against Kansas City when I was at Tampa. And I just literally, we win the game. I take my helmet off, and Coach Spagnuolo comes over to me, and I shake his hand. And then I see Patrick come over, and I shake his hand, and I just take my helmet off. I keep the game ball. And when I thought about the first Super Bowl, and I couldn't believe it, it was unbelievable. And now in my 10th one, I'm like, hey, good game, It just shows you, like, man, what happened to me? I had this, like, incredible joy about me as a young player, and then as you get older, it becomes a little bit different. And maybe referencing back to your question.
Well, there's the burden of expectation.
Yeah, it's just a different life happens to you. And as we go on in life, you get less, and we shouldn't do this, less joyful about new experiences. But the reality is new experiences are great because you've never experienced them before.
In your second or third Super Bowl, was there an epiphany or a moment in those games where you thought, man, I'm glad this isn't my first one? Like, there was a moment, Bill used to talk about there's going to be a moment in these games. And I forget the word Edelman told me earlier, but he said all big games have a moment. And And in your second and third Super Bowls, well, you'd experienced one of those moments in the first Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And how valuable was experience in the spot?
It's very important. Experience is great, but experience doesn't win you the game. Experience can help, I believe, with preparation and eliminating distractions, because media day is not new. Understanding all the ticket requests is not new. The pregame jitters are not new. So the experience helps, I think, from a preparation standpoint. From a game playing standpoint, I think what's led you to that moment is going to be the deciding factor in the game. This game isn't going to be decided because either of these two teams played 2 years ago. That game has zero bearing on it. The preparation and the lead up into the preparation of where these teams are at is going to be based on how focused and determined they were to nail the details of this particular week of practice so that they can go out and perform their very best. The difference in my second Super Bowl than my first, in my first Super Bowl, we were not the best team. We played the best on that day.
Right.
In my second Super Bowl, we were better than Carolina, and we played better than them on that day. In my third Super Bowl, we were better than the Eagles, and we played better that day. That's why we won. And that's the beautiful part about NFL football. You don't get a 7-game series to determine a world champion.
Right.
You get a 1-game, 3-hour, 3.5-hour game. And if whoever loses the turnover ratio in this game will have a serious problem winning this game. So if there's 2 turnovers to none, I'm pretty much assuring you the team who doesn't turn the ball over is going to win this game. So that's the interesting thing about these games. We played, my fourth Super Bowl against the Giants, the one we lost. We were a better team than the Giants. We were not better that day.
Right.
And that's the difference.
Bill behind the scenes shares the characteristics to a large degree of Bill at the podium dealing with us. But he can be funnier with the team. He can be very inspiring with the team. Of all the Super Bowls you were with Bill, because this is where Mahomes and Reed are. Like, Patrick's heard all the jokes. He's heard all the stories. Was there a Super Bowl speech by Bill or a motivational moment in any of the Super Bowls? Because now Patrick's been to a lot of these now. Stuff starts to smush together. Was there a moment that you thought the team needed inspiration and perhaps Bill delivered it in front of a Super Bowl?
I think it probably wasn't going into the Super Bowl that those were delivered. He did some great things going into the playoffs. And the urgency around playoff football, how you win in these moments, how you lose, those to me were the big moments where he really stepped his game up with our team. And I remember in particular, there were a few where probably after 2000, probably around 2011, 2012, he sat up there, and there was one great one where he spoke to our team, and he said, and he called out different free agents. So-and-so, you're here, and it was going into our first playoff game, you're here to win this game. It wasn't to beat the Jets in September. It wasn't to beat Buffalo in October. We brought you here to win this game. Brady, you're here, and we keep you here to win these games. Those other games you play, those are important. Yeah, we'll talk about them, and I'm not going to look too far back, but we're winning these because guys like you, and we evaluated to bring someone like you in because we thought you were going to contribute to us winning today. And it was like, damn, that was good. And that meant a lot to all of us. Like, okay, we were playing for something beyond a regular season success. We were playing in the caliber of our organization on the standard that was set, a lot like what's happening with Kansas City now. Their preparation for playoff football comes in May. It doesn't come when the playoffs start. They're beginning to work on their playoff mentality in May, in June, in July, in August. So by the time it gets here, their playoff mentality now is like, all right, well, how are we going to reach the Super Bowl? And that's the great part. When you can build continuity, when you can build belief and confidence in what you're doing, it can carry you pretty far. And I think when I was talking with those guys this week, they're just at a different level with their belief in what they think they can accomplish. And that can transcend a lot of the physical deficiencies they may have.
And to pivot off that, I think the Chiefs have a very sneaky edge in this game that hasn't been discussed. So I think about this. During the course of your career, and a lot of these pop into my head. Somebody's hurt, young guy comes on the field, and you just pick on him. Now, the Eagles have drafted so well. Whether it's Nolan Smith, took a while for him to get good. Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean. Those corners are rookies. And it's one thing to play a regular season game, a division game, or a playoff game. The cameras, the flashes, the spotlight. I look at Mahomes, and I think of you, and I think Tom would go after rookie corners. All right, hot shot. There's anxiety for veteran players. I think it's a slight Kansas City edge. There's an understanding of what this game means. There are a lot of young Eagle players, primarily on defense. There's a lot of seasoning on offense.
Yeah.
I think the inexperience is a vulnerability regardless of talent. Am I reaching?
In my opinion, it's a little more of a reach now than it used to be. And let me explain why. It's because when you're a young athlete in today's world, you already have a social media following. When you go to your high school, all your highlights are being broadcast all around the cities that you're playing in, your high schools. They're televising high school championship games everywhere. Then these kids go to college. They're playing in front of 100,000 fans. They're going to Georgia. They're going to Alabama. They're being covered like they're professional sports teams already. That was a lot different than when I grew up playing. No one paid attention to high school football when I played. You were never thought about unless you were written in some small write-up in a magazine. You'd go to college and I'd play football at Michigan and they'd be lucky to talk about you on SportsCenter on one particular night. These guys now, their entire lives are on film with their own social media following. So when I think of Cooper DeJean, when I think of Quinyon Mitchell, these guys are ready for prime time at a young age in terms of their ability to deal with the pressure and stress of an environment like this. I think they're much more prepared than ever before based on the notoriety that they're getting from a very young age. It doesn't mean they're got all the experience to go out and play great, but I'll say with this particular team in general, these guys have played great all year. Yeah. Quinyon Mitchell has been a stud. No picks this season, 2 in the playoffs. Got like a 78 passer rating against. Cooper DeJean, since they put him in a lineup, this defense has been phenomenal. His ability to close space and tackle people, he cuts down on these wide receiver screens that are so important to this Kansas City Chiefs offense. So I wouldn't be surprised if this Eagles defense goes out there and plays extremely well, even though it's against the best quarterback in the NFL. You know, the best player by a long shot in Patrick Mahomes, the best coach in football in Andy Reid. They're still going to give them a very, very tough time on Sunday.
So the difference between great quarterbacks and you is that you had your way with Spags. Mahomes, 8-0 against Vic Fangio.
Yeah.
That's really the difference.
Yeah.
So, and again, there's a lot of great quarterbacks, but the top 3 or 4 all time even punished Dick LeBeau.
Yeah.
Right? And so give me an idea. I remember you did an interview with Jay Glazer years ago, and it was around camp, and you told Jay, I've seen everything.
Yeah.
There's not a defense. And you said, it's just, you're not going to fool me.
Yeah.
You can beat me, but you're not going to fool me. I think Mahomes wasn't there. I think this year, he's gotten there.
Yeah.
It takes a while. He's seen everything. What is Jalen Hurts going to see from Spags? Because your numbers against Spags, 300 yards a game, 67% completion percentage, 98 passer rating. You were obviously better against other. So he gave you an occasional headache.
Yep.
What does Spags do that people just don't copy around the league?
Well, first of all, it's a very creative mind that he's got,
okay.
Spags. So he's willing to maybe risk a little bit to give something up, but he has tremendous trust in his guys to make the play. And then if the offense makes a good play, his guys are going to rally and minimize the risk that was kind of that he took. I think what he does a good job of is he is the visionary for the defense. He's got some great assistant coaches that can really detail out the plans to the players. And he tells Brett Veach, the GM of the Chiefs, I want smart players. And they have that in spades on this defense. So it's a very cerebral defense. They all work well together. If you're going to beat this team and do it, if you're going to go out there and play well against a Spags defense, you better understand your pass protections really well. You refer to Patrick as understanding protections and knowing that. Certainly what I did. Protections are really interesting. You can use a lot of different types. There's a lot of different ways to develop protections. In the end, the quarterback and the offensive line always need to be on the same page with where the problem is. And the reality is the defense can always cause a problem. This is how I look at it, I can solve my problems to the right and deal with something to the left, or I can solve my problems to the left and deal with something on the right. And what happens as a quarterback is you got to go up to the line of scrimmage and understand, okay, the threat looks like it's on its right. Let me make sure this is protected, and if they surprise me, I've got to do something with the football quickly if they bring people off the left. The challenging thing with Spags is you come up to the line of scrimmage, all the problem looks like it's on the right, okay? And you're like, got them, they're all picked up. And you snap the ball, and you got 3 dudes coming from the left. And you're like, how did they even do that? You know, he's rushing the nickel and the safety.
We saw that with Josh and the corner blitz.
Exactly. So that's the challenging thing about Spags. What it looks like he wants to do is bring it from one way, and he brings it from the other. And then every once in a while, it looks like it's coming from the right, and he brings it from the right. And then it looks like they're coming from the right, and they all drop and they bail into a very unique zone defense. So it takes a lot of studying to become very good at that. And if you can, like I was able to, and I would say Patrick, it's interesting with Patrick. Patrick, guess who he gets to go against in OTAs and in training camp every year?
We talked about this.
Spags.
Yes.
So he gets good at his own protection systems. Now, the interesting thing about Coach Fangio's defense, he doesn't blitz that much. He relies more on his front 4 to get pressure on the quarterback. So Patrick's responsibilities this week will be more minimal in terms of protecting against the blitz. Now, Jalen's, on the other hand, he's gone against Fangio in training camp and in the offseason for a defense that doesn't blitz that much. He's going to get blitzed a lot. And I would say 2 years ago, he played against this defense, and I thought performed the best game of his career against this defense, running the ball for, I think, 60, 70 yards, almost 300 yards passing. So Jalen, I think, relies a little bit more on his physical ability to get out of trouble, which can be a problem because if you blitz and you don't get home and there's exposure in these rush lanes, you can make them pay. So there's a little bit of a game within the game in both of those scenarios for both quarterbacks. The onus of the protection and the challenging part will come with Jalen and the Eagles' offensive line.
It's Friday night. It's the Super Bowl. Did you give yourself, hey, I'm going to watch a movie. I'm going to talk. No.
No.
None.
I literally went wire to wire for 2 weeks. I just realized how important these games were. And I think for me, what I realized early in my career about Super Bowls was, man, we won my first year. Like, what's the big deal? It's like I went to college. We played in the Orange Bowl. I won. We went to the Citrus Bowl. We won. Okay, now I'm in the Super Bowl. We won. All right, what's the big deal? We didn't have a great season in 2002. We won in 2003. What's the big deal? We won in 2004. What's the big deal? Right? Then you go to 2007 and you lose. And then you go to 2011 and you get to the Super Bowl after having a great team in 2010. And we lose. And it was just like, wow, this is way harder. We went 10 years between winning. And then I said, you know what? These Super Bowl moments that I get a chance to partake in, I'm going to exhaust every bit of energy I have for this week of games. Because when you lose this game, this is on your resume forever. A loss in the Super Bowl matters more than any loss that you're ever going to be a part of. When I go in Philly and they go, Philly special, and I'm at the Knicks game with my son and Spike Lee, I throw him a ball and he puts the ball and he catches it on his head like the helmet catch. I mean, that was 17 years ago, and I'm still living that thing down. And no one remembers the loss I had to Peyton in the 2015 championship game. No one talks about the 2013 loss to Denver in the championship game. No one talks about the loss to the Ravens in the 2012 AFC championship game. They all tell me about the losses in the Super Bowl, though. So I think the challenging thing, if you look at Patrick, for example, like, you want to win this game if you're Patrick, because if you don't, you're 3-2 in Super Bowls. And it's not a great feeling. So there is a lot of pressure, certainly from my standpoint, as I got older and I realized the enormity of this game, how important it is to actually win this game. So my last year, in my last Super Bowl I was a part of, I was 2 weeks of watching film. Friday night, I was just going through the film more. I knew Kansas City's defense better than they knew themselves. I knew their body movements, the way their linebackers moved, the way their safeties moved. Tyrann Mathieu, Nick Sorensen, Shavarius Ward. I knew everything they were doing. I got out there on the field. I looked up as I was walking the line of scrimmage, I said, okay, they're blitzing. And then I was dealing with it right away. I walked up, I said, okay, they're going to bail to cover 2. Ball snap, cover 2. And I knew I had the answers to the test. That's where I was great. That's where my magic superpower was. It wasn't how fast I could run. It was how fast I could diagnose what they were doing. What's the special quality? What's the internet speed of me as a quarterback? Fast as shit. I was Starlink before Starlink. You know, now other guys, if it's a slow processing speed, well, he's going to get you. And the reality is I could figure out what they were doing before they did it, because that's how I learned to play the game. And that's how I believe most quarterbacks should play the game. Unfortunately, as we've talked about, most quarterbacks aren't playing the game like that anymore. They're fast when they get out of the pocket, when they have to make decisions, but I didn't snap the ball unless I knew what they were doing and if my guys were going to be open. The one benefit you have as a quarterback, before you snap the ball, you know where everybody on your team is running. If you have 5 eligibles out in the route, I know where all 5 are going. If I look at the defense and I say, none of my guys are going to be open based on this coverage, we didn't design the play for this coverage, I don't need to snap the ball. I can run something different. I can check to a run. I can check to a screen. I can signal a receiver and change a route. And then I would just change the route to a route that I thought would be open. I'd catch the ball, I'd throw it, and it'd be a 15-yard gain. And everyone would be like, God, it looks so easy. And I'm like, well, yeah, it's easy because you're not paying attention to the right thing.
Right.
What's going on in here is what my superpower was. That was Peyton Manning's superpower. That was Drew Brees' superpower. Those were the guys that I tried to be like. That's what we did a great job of. So that part of the game is what I am really fascinated by. And when I see players play like that, those are the guys that I think have the most upside.
Before we let you go, I also think you have an emotional advantage, and Patrick has this. You're both great compartmentalizers. That you can bark at Josh McDaniel on the sideline. It's like the blackjack dealer. It's over. Now let's go play. It's okay to bark. I've always supported Peyton Manning yelling at Jeff Saturday. You barking at a coach. Like, folks, it's live sports.
Yeah.
We don't have time to hold grudges. So you sat down with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
And I've seen him yell at Andy Reid in the next series. He's great. Yell at Eric Bieniemy. That is a gift. And not all people have that emotional self-awareness and capability.
Yeah.
You had it. I think Peyton had it.
Yeah.
You don't take a mistake to the next series. Andrew Luck, I thought, was really good at that. When you sat down with Patrick on a Thursday or Wednesday before the Super Bowl, like, what is it? Do you see a little bit of you with him? How does it land?
Absolutely. I see a lot of him and I wouldn't say it's about myself. What I hear come out of his mouth is I always listen to what every quarterback says, because I put myself in their shoes and I say, okay, if Colin was asking me this question, how would I answer it? And when I hear a quarterback answer it the way that I would, I'm like, damn, good, man.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I respect about you. And when I first met Patrick in person, it was the 18 championship game. We ended up beating the Chiefs.
Yep.
And I went to the locker, and I went to his locker room because I had not had a chance to say hi to him. And I went in the locker room, and I said, hey, I watched you all year, and I just want to tell you, keep doing what you're doing. You're a great leader, and I know you're going to get back here, and you're on to the right stuff, and just never lose track of that. And it wasn't because he was this incredible thrower and sidearm and, blindfolded passes and left-handed throws. It was like, I've seen a lot of great passers. It's the intangibles that he has, his ability to relate to his teammates, the humility he has in success, giving credit to the other players. That's what great leadership is. And when you have a great leader at that position, it endears the entire team to you and to what your goal is as a team. And when the leader, like Patrick, sets the example, like I did, like Peyton did, like the greats do, well, then the sky's the limit. And I think that's what Patrick has shown over the course of his career. And I don't think he's changed one bit. In the end, he's just more of who he is.
Yeah.
He wakes up every day, and one of the great questions, and this is a lot how I felt in my 2003, 2004 season. When you win a Super Bowl after you've won a few, you don't want to win them for yourself. You want to win them for everyone else. You want to win them for the rookies that hadn't had a chance. You want to win them for the veteran free agents who have come to your team that have wanted to win a Super Bowl. You want to win it for the coaches that stuck around and didn't go to different jobs, or a new coach that came to the program. That's who you want to win it for, and it's exactly how Patrick answered that question. He said, man, I want to win it for other people. And I said, good for you. That's how it should be. You had the experience of winning. It's amazing. Now go win it for other people, and you're going to have this great shared experience with people that are going to be in your corner for the rest of your life. Man, that's the magic of winning a Super Bowl.
Perfectly answered. You've been in a few of these. Patrick now with a chance to win 3 straight. Tom Brady. Appreciate the time, man, as always.
Thanks, Colin.
All right.
Hi, everybody. It's me, Uncle Colin. Subscribe here to get the latest from the herd, including exclusive behind-the-scenes videos and more, wherever you may be, however you may be watching. Thanks again for making us part of your day.